Hello, welcome to the final class of the course Macroeconomics, where we'll be discussing contemporary macroeconomics issues. And at this module, it will provide a critical overview of selected contemporary issues shaping the modern macroeconomics landscape, and as well as a comprehensive review of some few key concepts in the course. And as such, macroeconomics is not static. It constantly evolves. And that's why we need to look into the model to engage with practical challenges and complexities economists face today, which include economic crisis and business cycles, the pervasive influence of globalization, and the informal economy, especially in developing countries. And when we talk about the economic crisis and business cycle, the macroeconomics environment is really stable. Economists move through alternating periods of expansion and contraction known as the business cycle. And this fluctuation can escalate into economic crisis marked by several disruptions. So having an understanding of this movement is essential for policymakers and economists seeking stability and long-term growth. When we talk about business cycle, it refers to the periodic ups and down, movement up and down in economic activities, which is measured by changes in real GDP, and it reflects patterns in consumption, investment, production, credit, and confidence. And as such, we have the business cycle divided into four different parts. And the first is the expansion, which is also known as the recovery. These are the phases of business cycles. And for the expansion, this phase is characterized by rising output, employment, income, and investment. And consumer confidence is high at this stage of phase. Business grows and demand increases at this stage. Also, we have the peak stage or phase, and this is the height of the expansion, and the economy operates near or at full capacity, but inflationary pressure may begin to build at this phase. Also, we have the contraction, which is the recession phase. And at this stage of phase, this is when economic activities begin to decline, investment slows down, consumption weakens, unemployment rises, and output falls. And the last is the trough. And this is the lowest point of the cycle, where the economy bottoms out, and eventually stabilization policy or self-correcting mechanism may initiate a new phase of recovery. So it moves as such from the expansion stage to the peak, to the contraction, which is also known as the recession, and then to the trough. And these are the phases of business cycles. And for economic crisis, an economic crisis is a sudden, severe breakdown in economic activities, which is marked by falling GDP, high unemployment, and financial instability. And the major types of economic crises include the financial crisis, the debt crisis, the currency crisis, shock, pandemic, or natural disaster. When we talk about the financial crisis, this is triggered by banking failures, credit crunches, or stock market crashes. An example is the global financial crisis of 2008. Also, we have the debt crisis, and this is countries or institutions cannot meet their debt obligation. An example of this is the Greek crisis of 2010. Also, another type is the currency crisis, and this is a sharp loss of confidence which leads to rapid currency depreciation, depleting reserve. And then another is the supply shocks, and this is the disruption in essential inputs. Example include oil, causing stagflation, that is a rising inflation or falling output. And the last is pandemic or natural disaster. This is another type of economic crisis, and this is an unforeseen event freezing economic activities. Example is the COVID-19 pandemic that we experienced. We move to globalization, which is another very important contemporary issue in macroeconomics. When we talk about globalization, it is the growing independence of national economies through the movement of goods, service, capital, technology, and labor across border. And what are the effects? We have the positive effect and the negative effects. For the positive effect, globalization increase economic growth. um, it leads to specialization and efficiency. It ensures access to capital and technology, and it also leads to job creation and income growth. And also, it aids consumer benefit, that is wider range and lower prices. And also, it improves international cooperation. And then the negative effect of globalization is globalization increased inequality. It leads to job displacement. Also, it leads to economic vulnerability to global shock, and also the loss of policy autonomy. And lastly, globalization um, have cultural and environmental impact, leads to cultural and environmental impacts. And the last on the contemporary issue we'll be talking on is the informal economy. Informal economy. And the informal economy encompasses economic activities outside official government regulations, taxation, and statistical reporting. And it plays a significant role in employment and income, especially in developing countries. The characteristics of informal economics are its lack of formal registration, and also the absence of legal protection. Also, the cash-based transaction, it involves cash-based transaction, and also it involves low capital intensity. Also, it involves intensive. It is labor intensive, and lastly, it is household or micro enterprise based, and those are the um, characteristics or features of informal economy. And what are the significance of this in macroeconomics? The first is the major employment source. It's a major employment source, and about 60 to 80% in many developing countries. And also, it aids income for marginalized population. It buffers against economic shock. And lastly, informal economic supply of ensure supply of low cost goods and services. What are the challenges of informal economy? Despite its importance, it also have challenges, and these include revenue loss, the activity escape taxation, reducing public revenue. Also, it leads to inaccurate data, that is exclusion from statistics, leads to underestimation of GDP. Also, as per poor working condition, it brings about the job insecurity, low wage, lack of benefits, and also hazard. And also another challenge is the low productivity, whereby we talk about the limited access to capital, skill, and technology. And lastly, the aspect of inequality, whereby we see it as a challenge, that is, it perpetuates inequality due to lack of upward mobility. In conclusion, contemporary macroeconomics issues highlight dynamic challenges from cyclical fluctuation and global crisis. to the impact of globalization and pervasive informal sector. And the business, we've looked into the business circle as one of the contemporary issue, where we see it as inherent instability requires counter-cyclical policy. For globalization, we see that it fosters growth, but exacerbates inequality and vulnerability. And for informal economy, we see that it's critical for livelihood, but challenges taxation and accurate GDP measurements. So addressing this demand adaptive strategies for sustainable development in an interconnected world. So we need to address these demands, and this need to be looked into. Thank you.